Hello and welcome back, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Today we are going to be doing a rundown of patch 1.1's notes for Civilization 7. It's going to be the first patch that we've done notes through, so without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, Civ fans. That's not right. Where's our Happy Tuesday? Okay. Update 1.1 is here, our first major update to Civilization 7. This update includes a mix of both free and paid content, with many of the free additions influenced by the community feedback. For those extensive 1.1 notes, we've separated PC and console into two separate sections so you can easily read for your preferred platform. We play on PC. We're only going to read the PC section. I assume it's going to be bug fixes specific to the console version, which are bug fixes that we've not seen, or bugs that we've not seen. And so we won't be able to speak to that as well. If you wanted to look at the console or version, feel free to do so. As part of these update notes, we're including a feature spotlight section where the developers will dive deeper into new features or improvements being made, aka a teaser video. The update notes will cover the addressed issues and improvements, including changes to both the base game and the DLC. And lastly, for those who are excited about paid content additions, a collection section will showcase the newest civs, leaders, wonders included in the latest paid content collection. I almost thought that was consent collection, which would be like a weird word to have in there. This update also brings a number of addressed issues and improvements specifically for console players. Woo! We've seen some console players in the comment section being like, why is the game so much worse for us? So shout out to you boys getting some extra love. Some of these changes may already be available to PC players, but now all platforms are fully up to date. This also means crossplay between PC has been restored across PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch, and so you can once again enjoy cross-platform multiplayer between PC and these consoles, or you can be a PC elitist and never play with the console players. Okay, for a look into what else we're planning, we have our recently released update check-in detailing some of what we can expect in our next update. Why don't we also take a look at that at the end of this section, and some major features being scoped out in the futures. As always, we've been listening closely to your feedback, so keep sharing on the Steam discussion forums or our official Civilization Discord server. Okay, so feature spotlight, refining the modern cultural legacy path, geographic societies. So this has been like a bit of a hot mess. So far, the AI just produces like infinite explorers. It's a weird type of scramble. You have to just get there first, but if you get there first, it's trivially easy to be able to do a cultural victory. So the first thing you have to do is research museums, get your archaeologists out immediately, and then you completely stop the AI from having any ability to go for stuff just very, very quickly, and then you don't have to worry about losing to a cultural victory. Although the AI generally doesn't go for victories that hard, we haven't really felt them breathing down our spine at all in the modern age. I think that's because if you get a big enough advantage in the exploration age, modern age is somewhat trivial, but let's see how they revamp it. If you've been chasing down a geographic society victory, you may have noticed some balance quirks. We made some key changes to improve how this victory feels and plays, include removing the chance for artifacts to run out in-game. Interesting. So they're just going to keep appearing. I do know that if you overbuild over a building, you have a chance to roll an artifact, and this is one of the ways in which if you lose the artifact scramble, you can still try and play for the victory, is constructing a ton of buildings and making it harder for players to breeze through this path when no other players are aiming for this victory. This is kind of what we were saying, in that if you're the first one there, you can kind of push it pretty hard, and so this is why I think critically, like in the opening, you just go for it, because you brick your opponent's ability to go for this age, and the investment is really low, because it's the starting tech that you go for in order to reveal the artifacts. I forget the name of the tech. It unlocks museums, but this is the starting one you go for. And I think you just do that, and then you kind of pop off. Here are the key changes. Explorer unit now costs more to slow down early rushes. That's really not that big a penalty, because the cost is not the prohibitive thing. Fewer exploration age artifacts spawn per continent. That's fair enough, making it less valuable to just rush the tech and start purchasing explorers. And then making competition for discoveries more strategic. Fair enough. Natural wonders can now be studied for artifacts. Okay, they get the new mastery in the natural history tech. Do like moving stuff back on the tech tree instead of having it feel so front-loaded in terms of discovering the first wave of artifacts. Each player can collect these new artifacts once per natural wonder. Everyone having access to it makes it less of a race and less about just trying to beat everyone there. Fair enough. Additional artifacts can be earned by completing the Future Civic, repeatable, providable new late-game opportunities. I still think you can get a fair amount from overbuilding, so this seems maybe a little bit less of a concern. Additional AI and quality of life improvements around a geographic society gameplay, fair enough. I assume this means the AI will actually stop spamming 15,000 explorers and yet never getting a reasonable amount of the things. They have a really big advantage in terms of yields, and if the yields are spent on stupid things, then that advantage doesn't matter. They would just spam like stacks of like 8 explorers, which don't do anything. And then all the explorers would just all go for the same artifact, so they'd all be in the same place. Instead of sending one explorer and then keeping the rest spread out on the continent for when they get the next research and the ability to unlock new artifacts and the next wave of artifacts, having their guys in position for that. So hopefully the AI actually plays somewhat intelligently on that. But we'll see. The AI is unintelligent in the same way with like settlers, where they'll run settlers in circles too sometimes, rather than because whatever their initial settle that they wanted got bricked or something, I assume is the reasoning. But we'll see. We hope that these changes balance the pacing of geographic society victory, rewarding players who go all in on culture while ensuring other leaders have a fair shot at competing for different paths. Yeah, I mean, if you're moving some of the power onto later tech, or later civics, this is going to achieve that, right? This is one of the fastest victories. I think it probably is the fastest victory, the cultural victory, and so we'll be monitoring victory pacing across all legacy paths to make further adjustments as needed. Honestly, I think that one of the legacy paths that's a little bit rough right now is in the exploration age, the treasure fleet one. I think is a lot harder to achieve than the other ones. Which is maybe not a problem. You just focus on that more. And maybe that just has to do with the fact that we're getting golden in all the other spheres, and maybe we're just progressing too fast in the other ones. But okay, PC update notes. New features: Modern Age Geographic Society, Natural History now grants explorers +1 sight, and the ability to gain artifacts from natural wonders. Competing Future Civic gets artifact. Hegemony now grants +1 artifact per explorer when the research artifacts. Explorers have had their cost increased now that artifacts can be acquired from more sources. Explorers can no longer create a new dig site on top of an existing dig site. Does this mean when someone else is currently digging, you cannot start digging to guarantee your dig? I think that that's a good thing. I didn't realize that was happening, but okay. Continents lens have been updated to show natural wonders that could provide artifacts. Cool. Hegemony has a bit switched places with militarism and now requires nationalism and globalism, moving back in the tree. Fair enough. Increased the number of artifacts that are spawned on tiny maps. I didn't even consider that because we've been playing on standard size. But yeah, I mean, it's probably easier the bigger maps you go. Holy cities can now be converted. Alright, leaders and civs. Expecting to see a lot of nerfs, expecting to see Isabella nerfed, and also expecting to see probably the Meier nerfed, but we'll see how things go. Napoleon can no longer reject sanctions for free. Alright, fair enough. America now receives +2 resource slots upon constructing their unique quarter. Not sure America needed a buff, but this is fair enough. Buganda adjusted Nizanic civic effect for modern Buganda to award +1 happiness, +1 culture on quarters adjacent to rivers or lakes. Don't really have that strong an opinion on Buganda, but okay. Added +1 resource slots to the Zaibatsu. I think that this is maybe a paradigm where they're adding resource slots to things that have, I think, this is an industrial/economic quarter. This is industrial/economic quarter, and they want to have a little bit of a different vibe and also give you or reward you for going for an economic victory, something like this. I think Japan was a little bit weak, not extremely weak, so buffing them seems fine. Siam increased the cost of Siam's action to be more than 50% of the standard befriend independent action. All right. Addressed the reported issue where Siam was sometimes not working properly in the modern age after unlocking them during the exploration age. I think we had this happened to us one time. We haven't played Siam, so hard to comment on that. Is that really the only adjustments? Okay, Memento balance is going to be happening as well. We will be able to comment on that. Gameplay, AI. AI will now perform better at completing modern cultural legacy paths by getting artifacts, etc. Kind of a little bit of a bummer to only see them making one adjustment for legacy path, but okay. Addressed a reported issue where the AI would sometimes fail to spend their points during an advanced start setup. Okay. We haven't played around with those. We're planning on making a video with one of those, so that'll be interesting. Economy. Oil rigs now benefit from warehouse bonuses granted to ironworks and combustion tech masteries. This is good, as that's like the most reasonable thing. City Patron Pantheon decreased from +3 to +2 on altars. Yeah, I do think that that one was the best because Diplo as a resource seems to be the most valuable resource. It's certainly the hardest to get. It does make it so that anything that has base yields on Diplo, you don't want to build over across ages, and it kind of warps gameplay patterns a little bit. The fact that this has been reduced from 3 to 2 seems fine, and I think that this will make, well, this makes it so that the Sun God King, or whichever one, is probably the best. City Patron might still be the best, but it's, 50%, or like, it's either 50% worse or 33% worse, depending on how you want to perform the math. In progress buildings that are instantly granted to a player will now auto-complete. Okay. I don't know exactly what that covers, but okay. Sanctions can now be used as neutral relations, as their cost will decrease as the relations get more hostile. Alright, this sounds good. Addressed a reported issue with Revolution Crisis applying more unhappiness in settlements than stated. Interesting. Naval units can now disperse independent powers. This is an adjustment that is a buff to naval units. I really do think naval units are... they're like very, very strong, but they're contextual. I think it makes it so that, man, navigable rivers really, if there's a lot of navigable rivers on you or someone you're fighting, it really changes the way things go a lot. A lot of this has to do with the AI just being very bad at analyzing tactics on navigable rivers, which is, if your opponent has a fleet advantage on navigable rivers, you can never, ever have a unit enter onto the navigable river. It will just get jacked up so fast. And also, at least in the ancient age, you can have a range advantage on ships with archers and this type of stuff, or if you're sitting behind fortifications, you can use archers and stuff like this on the naval units. But overall, the naval units coming up the river is really, really powerful. And so I do think that the fact that they can disperse independent powers is also a little bit nice, because it's been the case that you have to move entire armies because the generals are a civilian unit. You can move them across. Now this is less important as your navies can disperse them. And so having navies alone is enough to disperse as you would like in new lands. Okay. Refinements made the army unpacking action. Players now have the option to select the commander hex when choosing to unpack direction. Very nice. Also, hopefully they can select to unpack on the hex that they are, or players now have the option to select the commander hex. That's what it means. This hex that the commander's standing on was previously ineligible, which was really frustrating. Doing so will unpack the strongest unit in the commander unit's hex and arrange any adjacent hexes based on the current facing direction of the commander. Interesting. If the player indicates direction to unpack by selecting an adjacent hex, the strongest unit will unpack in that direction, with the strongest unit unpacking before unpacking on the commander hex. Remaining units will unpack on adjacent hexes, etc. But hopefully, when you're unpacking a unit one at a time, because you can do that because the unpack thing is not that reliable, hopefully you can put them on the commander hex now. Addressed an issue with harassment promotion unintentionally stacking too high. Okay. Addressed an issue with the incorrect bombard strength being used for Guard Imperial and Sepoy unique infantry units. That is interesting because they have felt, the Bombard felt really weak on the Guard Imperial when we played with it, and so now maybe it'll be strong, we'll see. Duplicate aerodrome commanders no longer appear when conquering a settlement in the modern age. The UI for aerodrome commanders just seems really awful right now. A ghost unit or multiple units of class can no longer be created when a unit is deployed by an AI commander during normal gameplay. Alright, fair. Bermuda Triangle has been added as natural wonder all players. I anticipate this gives science. We'll see what it gives. Memento balance. This is going to be a pretty substantive, chunky thing. I'm anticipating seeing the combination of the food plus the bloom strategy, where you get the exploration card to immediately to be nerfed. So let's see. Topak or Tokapu Tunic, sorry for pronunciation, now grants +1 sights for scouts adjacent to mountains, was +3 sight. Was that really a problem? I mean, I think that card is probably not usable, but okay. Altar set now grants 1 culture from specialist. Was 1 culture and gold from specialist. Okay, I thought that was conditionally sometimes a useful one to do, maybe in Expo and Modern. This seal now grants 1 culture and gold for unique buildings and improvements. Was +3 from before. To be fair, this was quite strong, but I don't... Yeah, okay. Crown of Napoleon now grants 200 gold per age when a formal war is declared against you. Was 100 gold, probably still really weak. Getting someone to declare it on you in antiquity maybe can slingshot you, so this would only be an antiquity memento, but I think that there's really strong memento, at least until we read through any nerfs to them, really strong memento combinations in antiquity that make it just kind of functionally unusable. Dong Sum Drum, declaring a formal war against another civilization, grants a tech boost. Old effect would grant a celebration. Seems like a bit of a buff here. Pretty nice, especially if you know you're going to be rumbling. A tech boost is 50% of the way towards a tech, so this represents a decent chunk of science, and often this is going to be, I assume, pretty close to the beginning of the age where that sort of effect is a bit stronger. Eagle Banner. Now cities grant 2 science per great work on display, max 20%. Old effect was they would grant 5% bonus science per great work they contain, max 25%. So this was probably good to have nerfed. I don't know how usable it is now. Maybe that was kind of a big nerf. But okay. Great Imperial Crown now grants +2 science per age on towns in Tundra. Old effect was cities grant 5% science per great work on display. So now we have one that leans into cities and one that leans into towns. I think that's probably an improvement. I think towns, generally speaking, aren't worth building because of the way food scales, but or generally speaking, you want to upgrade as many towns to cities as possible. We have a video on that for kind of some of the math, if anyone was interested. Just like spreadsheet warning here. The main idea here is that you kind of, because of the exponential cost modifiers, which slowly decrease with age, you kind of hit a wall where your marginal growths or growth events are going to be 40, 50 plus turns because the cost gets so high, and so it's going to require too many turns to get a growth event. The entire purpose of food is to achieve growth events so that you can get additional yields beyond what you're getting now, and so eventually, functionally, you're not going to have another growth event for the rest of the age. So when that kind of hits, it's really not useful to get extra food. And as a consequence of this, getting a bunch of extra food from towns to build one city tall, it really doesn't really build it that much taller. It just gets you like 2 additional population maybe, or something like this, by like doubling the amount of food that you're getting in a city. And so it would be better to have the city be working tiles and production instead of turning that production into gold and being able to build buildings. It would be better to have that than to have the marginal 2 specialists in the city that you currently have, because you doubled the amount of food they were getting. Okay. Now grants +1 sight or +2 sight instead of +1 for scout, search, and lookout abilities. Was +3 sight. Okay, fair enough. I don't know why they're really about nerfing the sight. I think that in general, this is a little bit weaker of an effect. I mean, it's kind of okay in their opener age, but now grants +2 happiness for every cavalry effect. Was +2 happiness per age for every cavalry unit. This makes sense. You could get more units kind of later on. I expect that this probably makes this card not very good in Modern, but probably still to the extent it was usable, which is pairing with Charlemagne and whatever happiness thing you're cooking up. I imagine it's still going to be a viable card. It's probably going to be just viable in Exploration. Considering we don't see them, it doesn't look like they've been nerfing. They're nerfing what we think is the strongest Memento combo, so which is the Food Blossom plus Exploration Point. Merchant Saddle now grants +1 movement for scouts, merchants, settlers, and explorers. It's +1 movement and sight. So they've nerfed the sight there. Okay. Padron Real now grants +2 happiness per age on natural wonders. Old effect was +100% yields on natural wonders if you're working the natural wonder tile. So this is a very significant nerf, which I think is probably appropriate, given that the strongest civ in the game right now does seem to be Isabella. So this seems fine enough that what she would get would be significantly nerfed. We see Queen's Jewelry, which I think is another one of her mementos. Now grants +2 gold per age on natural wonders, was +2 gold on natural wonders. Oh, so they buff this. Well, I think that... So it's a question of whether you want happiness or gold, but they're functionally very similar. And if you want to use both your memento slots, you can still get a decent chunk of advantage. Okay, fair enough. Isabella's a nerf, though. We do like to see that. Arrayus now grants +10% cultures on cities with at least one wonder, and it used to grant production towards wonders as well. I thought that this one was pretty solid before, but we're not going to be having it. And we don't have a nerf to the standard food, what I think is kind of the stronger start that gets you really snowballing. A bit interesting. So in the Ancient Age, I think you're supposed to go food... the food memento that gives you food for, it's something flowers and honey or something like that, or gold and sapphire flowers. It gives you food per exploration attribute point you spend. Getting that with the attribute point allows you to, by turn like 3 or 4, be size 5 and working on your first settler, which allows you to just get everything going faster. Although we've kind of been suggesting that metagame is maybe not good or as good in light of the fact that the food situation, like food falls off so hard, but I still think getting ahead is really, really valuable, and it's really easy to underrate things that start you snowballing faster in games. But okay. Diamond Throne, +1 happiness, memento text updates, +1 happiness per age on quarters during celebration. Okay, fair. Gain science and culture equal to 4% of your gold income, Lotus Blossom. This does seem pretty solid. Of course, they're just changing the text, and 20 culture at the start of every celebration, +20 culture per age at the start of every celebration. Alright, fair enough. UI text changes. Updated this building to state +3 science instead of +4 science. That's a text change, not a balance change. Interesting. Updated text for the following effects received. Maja Pahit. Exploration age, culture buildings get +1 culture per coast. Nice. America, steel mill, +6 production, gold adjacency for resources and wonders, American upgrade, etc. These are just kind of like clarity and this type of upgrade or improvement. Notifications, not enough golden treasury message now correctly appears when it's playing to purchase an item the player cannot afford. Didn't know that was a message because we haven't seen it, but now correctly appears. I think we haven't seen it. The lines connecting the tech and civic tree now properly align with their respective nodes. Yeah, we've started to just, like, know what you need to research instead of, like, actually seeing it visually. Good that it is visually kind of improved. Civilopedia, probably going to make some improvements. The UI is definitely one of the more rough kind of situations for the game, so let's... maybe this is, like, a lot of, like, polish and this type of stuff that I think that players will notice that things are better. Selecting factory resources no longer highlights invalid slots. Nice. And so I think that this is some UI stuff. The UI's been bad. We're just going to kind of skim over that. Narrative events address various issues. Quests addressed an issue where the Great Library 3 legacy wasn't creating if an academy was purchased. We've seen acquiring buildings other through... So the trigger on some things seems to be constructing it rather than acquiring it. And so conquering something that has a building versus building the building or buying the building does seem to sometimes scuff certain things. In particular, the acquisition of wonders. It will say that you have the legacy path for the wonders if you conquer stuff to get the wonders, but you have to build the wonders in order to actually trigger the finishing of the path, which isn't addressed here, so rough. Okay. Content collection. Probably what you guys were waiting to see, and maybe the order we should have done things in. Crossroads of the World Content Collection, DLC 1 through 3. We are going to be getting a couple of things. Notably, we are going to be getting Ada Lovelace, and also we are going to be getting Carthage. Each of these bundles will include 6 distinct packs of paid content, including new leaders, etc. Buying a content collection gets you all 6 included packs, which will be deployed at different scheduled times according to our roadmap. We're on the Crossroads. Our first half, the Crossroads of the World Collection, our first content collection following the launch of Civ 7 goes live with part of Update 1.1. Players with the Crossroads of the World Collection, which comes for owners of the Deluxe and Founders Edition, etc., will automatically have access to the new leader, Ada Lovelace, new Civs Great Britain in the Modern Age, and Carthage in Antiquity, and the new Natural Wonders to discover. So we will be playing through and seeing that. We will also reiterate that you can play multiplayer matches with other players, whether or not you own the same DLC or civilizations. Let's take a look at Ada Lovelace's thing.
To use and apply the language of science, we must fully appreciate, feel, seize the unseen.
Without Ada Lovelace, the Civilization series might not exist. As such, she gets along best with anyone else tinkering and experimenting at the known edges of human knowledge.
Science.
Lovelace's scientific contributions would lead to major cultural shifts, so she gets major culture and science bonuses that fuel one another.
+2 science per age. This does seem to be pretty strong. +2 science per age when you complete a civic mastery. So really incentivizing you to go for civic masteries early. This is going to be particularly strong in the early ages, especially if you have a strategy where you are rushing for being able to do espionage, which involves you rushing a civic mastery kind of as quickly as you can. All your cities receiving +2 science when you're, getting somewhere in the neighborhood of the teens to low 20s of science, and you have 3 cities is going to represent like a 33% increase. So this is probably going to be very strong early on.
Chase civic and technology masteries to build
Gain culture equal to 50% of your total science per turn when you complete a technology mastery. Oh, this is
Memento,
double trouble.
And capitalize on all those juicy bonuses long before your competition. Consider pairing Ada Lovelace with Great Britain in the Modern Age to boost your production so you can focus on chasing down technology and civic masteries. Or choose a different path, all your own. But whatever you build, remember to build something you believe in.
Aw, what a nice heartfelt message. And then, of course, it's available now. Okay. From childhood, Ada Lovelace inspected the world through the scientist's eyes, forging a path between intellectualism and imagination. She applied her mathematical mind to the 19th century's most cutting-edge cutting-edge experiments. I don't know why I said progress. Working with mechanical computers, which made calculations using gears and punch cards, she designed her first computer program, establishing the field of computing over a century before technology caught up to her vision. Attributes scientific and cultural. Ability, cities receive increased science per age when you complete a civic mastery. We saw that was +2 per age. This resets at the start of each age. Gain culture equal to the percentage of your total science per turn when completing a technology mastery, which is, a little bit of a wombo combo, some internal synergy here, and her agenda is analytical engine, increases relationship by a small amount for having the most masteries, decrease relationship by a small amount for leader with the least masteries. And okay. we see civilizations here that are being added, which are going to be added new modern age civilization. We're going to be taking a look at Great Britain here first. The sun never sets on the British vast empire, except when it did at the, at the beginning of the 20th century. Its territory spread across all continents, funneling raw materials from colonial holdings to the factories in metropole. Foreign policy was conducted through economic strategy, extensive diplomacy, and threat of war. This is familiar to people, the Victoria III people. The British Navy dominated the seas, while at home, a society found a new order amid the explosion of industry. Under Pax Britannica, the world follows British leads. We're economic and expansionist. That definitely makes sense. Unique ability, workshop of the world. Buildings are a set percentage cheaper to produce or purchase. Converting towns into cities costs a set percentage more. Interesting. This, of course, will increase the value of a golden age that... I think that the golden age for moving into the modern age, probably the best one is probably not the one where your cities get to stay cities, but this would increase the value of that. Buildings are a set percentage cheaper to produce or purchase. We're not sure of the numbers because this isn't telling us the numbers. When we see the numbers, we'll be able to evaluate this a little bit better. Their unique civilian unit is an antiquarian. Their unique military unit is the Revenge, and their associated wonder is the Battersea Power Station. Okay. New Antiquities civilization, Carthage. Do we get to look a little bit closer, actually, at Great Britain in terms of the numbers? So we're taking a look here. Let's take a look at their civic tree as well, as we take a look into here. Pax Britannica, settlements receive increased production for each factory resource assigned to them, unlocks the Royal Exchange unique building. This seems pretty strong. Unlocks the manufacturer unique building and Battersea Power Station. Here we have one extra movement for civilian units. This is a really nice QOL in the modern era, including not just settlers, but like also the antiquarian and this type of stuff. I guess it's better in the exploration age specifically. Cities with both great work and a resource slotted have increased culture and science. This seems cool. Ports have increased resource capacity. Also cool. Unlocks with the East India Company tradition. Increased gold and buildings on the towns. Do think towns in general are weak, so buffs to towns are going to be weak as well. Units received increased combat strength unless you're yielding negative gold per turn at the start of the turn. Seems fair enough. Increased settlement cap unlocks no eternal allies. Increased golden towns for every alliance receive decreased gold in the capital. Okay, interesting. I do like trade-offs, just generally speaking, in terms of how things are. Increased gold for every connected settlement is very strong as a quarter bonus. A lot of quarter bonuses are not meaningful, but that's a very strong quarter bonus. Very reminiscent of Spain getting one for every overseas settlement. This receives culture from every tile... for every tile from your capital when you use the excavate artifact action. Interesting. Shout out to Britain stealing the world's stealing Egypt's stuff. A lot of Egypt stuff was taken. Greek stuff too. British Museum. Alright, and then we have the Revenge, has splash keyword, dealing a small amount of damage to adjacent units, and Battersea Power Station production base when training a naval unit, receive an additional naval unit of the same type. Okay, so it is the Venetian arsenal of Civilization 6. Alright, so fair enough. I think that what we'll do is we'll take a look at Carthage through this lens. We have talked about it on stream a little bit, but that will be kind of the end of what we're looking at, because this does, or very quick, let's take a look at natural wonders. We are going to be getting 4 new natural wonders, but only one of them. Crossroads of the World DLC added 4 natural wonders. Alright. Machapura Che, Mount Fuji, here, Viren. Sorry for the pronunciations. Let's see. We can see a look at the collection page. I do think that they are not going to have yeah, they're not going to have descriptions for exactly what the wonders yields are, but we are going to take a look at the Carthage page here. I do think Carthage looks particularly weak because it is town focused. We have taken a look at this before, and we will talk about this when we start a Carthage. We're going to be playing Carthage on stream today, but in particular it looks very weak. Phoenician heritage can only have one city. Towns cannot use to convert to city. When you create a merchant or a colonist unit, gain a copy of that unit. So, double settlers and merchants, that is something. That is powerful. I do think that the amount that you produce, though, increases the marginal cost of subsequent ones. I assume that it will increase that pip twice. So to some extent, the nature of the scaling of cost of these things makes this bonus a little bit worse than it other would, but this is something. Double is double trouble, right? So this is nice. This is not nice. As we've discussed, using towns to try and build one city extremely tall has really, 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 really diminishing returns in that, spreadsheet warning. You are going to have an absolute explosion in the cost of the amount of food required to have a growth event, such that, doubling, tripling, quadrupling your food is not going to have a meaningful impact when you are otherwise needing 380 turns, right, to grow. So, to that extent, I do think that the fact that you're stuffed onto one city is a bit rough. However, they have some offsets for that. We have the ship seeds, very important, here's our civic tree. Our unique infrastructure is going to be where a lot of our advantages come in, but increased movement for naval units unlocks the Cothan and the building of the Birsa Wonder. Increased range for naval units is very strong as well. Unlocks the Quin Quireme tradition. These two together, we were talking about how boats are very strong. The galleys is not super strong. The quadrireme is strong in the Ancient Age, and I think that this the +1 range is like a very significant thing in terms of actually being able to execute. So if you're on coasts and rivers and this type of stuff, this will be valuable. Increase gold towards purchasing naval units. Decrease gold maintenance for naval units. Fair. This tradition isn't going to scale that well until later ages, I don't think, but maybe they'll scale kind of okay-ish, because I think Exploration Age naval units are pretty good too. It depends on the numbers. Here we have Wisdom of Tanit, increased a sea trade route range, increased gold in the capital from every trade route from the capital, so we are going to want to run all of our trade routes out from the capital, so that's where we want our merchants. Unlocks the dockyard unique building, increased resource cap in the capital, which of course is important because normally a way you increase the resource cap is by getting additional cities. We cannot gain additional cities. And here is one of the things that is going to be, we hope, substantive enough to offset the fact that you can't make extra towns and settlements. Increase gold towards purchasing buildings on coast or navigable rivers. So I think what the strategy is going to be is to buy as many buildings as possible in all your towns and get the towns up really, really big and set yourself up for a nice exploration age where you are having a bunch of really huge towns that already have a decent chunk of buildings, and you have a decent exploration age transition. I think that the fact that you're not transitioning with a bunch of buildings with base yields that are strong, that specifically have Diplo and this type of stuff is bad. Like the Villa transitions really well into Exploration Age. The Monument transitions really well because the base yields include the influence, and you're not going to have access to that type of thing unless you play Augustus. Then you can have monuments, but you can't have the villas. Increased settlement camp. I'm wondering how much this increases it by. I don't know the numbers yet because I haven't gotten in the game to take a look. If this is just 1, this isn't going to make it okay. If this is 3 or something like that, and if the increased gold towards purchasing buildings is like 50% plus, then I can see this cooking. If we have enough synergies in particular spheres, maybe it's good. Notably, Augustus as a leader gives, and it's insulting that Augustus is probably going to pair the best with Carthage, because obviously Rome salted Carthage, never forget, it's the greatest geopolitical disaster of the last 2.5 millennia. But if you have plus 50% towards purchasing buildings, and an additional plus 50% towards purchasing buildings, those buildings are half off. And so, a manufactory goes from being 220 to 110. Then if you get an additional amount on top of that, whoo baby. Increased settlement cap unlocks, but if this is like 3, then you can dot the entire coast with all your settlements, purchase your unique unit. If you're playing as Augustus, purchase all the cultural buildings, really kind of push in that regard. But we have increased gold from mining towns, increased food from fishing or farming towns. Again, the food kind of falls off. We're not super in love with it. We're probably trying to push mining towns specifically, and it's going to be difficult to push mining towns that we want adjacent to the coast so we can build our unique Cothan and dockyard on it. So going to need to be a little bit lucky with the way we roll things. And then Numidian cavalry is our unique unit. So we have unique port or quarter in the Punic port. Increased resource capacity in the settlement. Fantastic. Really going to allow you to actually slot in resources because you don't have cities. This plus the additional resource slots of the capital. Really big fan of this in terms of making this somewhat playable. Cothan, unique building, production base, production adjacency with coast and navigable rivers. Production is one of the better yields, especially early on when you don't have a lot of production. I think as you start to have a lot of production, it scales down, and this is going to be ageless, right? So you are going to have an ageless building with one of the easiest to achieve adjacencies of coast and navigable rivers. So this is going to, I don't know what the base production is. If the base production's 2 and it gives +2 on average when you're building it, this +4 production building scales pretty well. It has to be on coast tile. We also have dockyard, gold base, food adjacency with the resources and districts. Now, the food doesn't scale that well. This is granted. But if you slap down a town and then you immediately buy a dockyard in it, that actually does scale pretty well. So, spreadsheet warning, if you were take a look at it, at the early outset, marginal food is going to be really useful for growing you. And so you can grow up very quickly and start to get those gold yields very quickly, get those resources very quickly, as a result of just being able to plop down dockyards really fast as you settle towns with Carthage. So maybe that gap where you can close between pop 1 and pop 7 faster on towns from the dockyards here makes this probably the first building you buy, and then you buy the Cothan afterwards. You don't really need the production in your city because it's not a city, it's a town. Yeah. Colonist replaces settler, increased embarked movement, increased population of settlement adjacent to a resource. The increased embarked movement is kind of okay, I guess, but you're really not moving your settlers overseas that much in this age, so maybe it's not that great. Okay, and then we have Numidian cavalry, unique unit, and then Birsa, gold base. Trade routes from the settlement cannot be raided or plundered. All tiles in the city that are adjacent to the coast and eligible for walls receive a wall. Must be placed adjacent to a coast tile. This is intended, I assume, to go into your capital because you want to do all your trade routes from your capital because you get bonuses from doing trade from your capital, and you have a starting bias for coast and grassland. So Carthage does seem to be on the weak side, but we're going to give it a try today and do it on stream. And if you want to tune in, feel free to. But that will kind of conclude our review of the patch notes. Pretty extensive. We've gotten some new toys. We're going to play with them. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Do the YouTube algorithm thing. And other than that, have a good one.